本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? I'm your host, Patrick Klepek. Rob Zachney, not content with taking time off a little while ago, says, no, I'm Rob Zachney. I'll take more time off. Rob is like, actually, there's a bunch of that going on here at Waypoint HQ with Vice Media's, well, this is normal at most companies. You gotta burn holiday rollovers before they just gotta disappear into the void. What you shouldn't do is, after 6 years of the company, look up how many hours you haven't used in that 6 years that just got eaten by a recycling machine. Well, no, it didn't recycle it. It's a trash bin. And you just don't get those hours back.
Incinerated.
Wait, how many? That? Wow, that's a lot of months I could have spent with my family or just relaxing. Yeah.
Who did this? Was that you?
It was me. It was me.
It was you, Patrick.
I am pretty good about taking time. It's more that like 6 years you discover that you could have taken more. But those are the voices of producer Renata Price. Hello, Ren.
Hello.
And back from, well, still in the moving void. Don't ask them about what's behind them because they don't want to talk about it. Ricardo Contreras, hello.
Hello.
Are you alive?
Kind of. I'm getting
Is
there.
that desk? Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
You put out a very concerning tweet. Now, I feel the allyship with this tweet because it has happened to me many times over the course of moving. But you took a desk, you disassembled it, you moved it to your new apartment, and then reassembled it and discovered at the end. Can I see it? Do you have access to it?
No. And I'll tell you why.
All right. But you tweeted that there was a single
screw.
I have a entertainment center that has been kicking around from Crate and Barrel for like 13 years, like a real long time. When it made it to our house, it was clearly the last move, but I've disassembled it, reassembled it over the course of 3 or 4 moves. Like it was one of the first pieces of furniture, like spent like what felt like real money at the time for what we had access to. Like, yeah, like this is $300 is real money. But like every time I would disassemble it and reassemble it, I would end up with like a screw and a bolt. I'm like, well, it's standing up. Seems fine now.
Okay.
And that happened multiple times over the course of moving.
Amazing.
So walk me through your desk.
Okay. First of all, my desk is fucking huge. Measured from corner to corner, it's 60 inches by 60 inches. It's L-shaped. So
right. I got an L-shaped too, but mine's smaller than yours, I think.
So it's like enormous. Has to be taken apart. Can't be taken down. It's also a standing desk. Because especially working from home.
Motorized? Like you hit a button or we're like cranking
I've
something?
I've done this bit before, haven't I? Where I go like, goodbye.
Probably. Not recently. So. Long enough for me to not remember.
Right. Yeah. So there's
Wow,
motors.
Cado truly has left us.
There's motors in each of the legs. Which makes each leg extremely heavy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Look, I'm just happy that the standing desk survived being torn down and put back together. That just seems stressful all on its own.
It seems
it's
a very sturdy
with instructions,
desk.
Or were you like, I'm gonna figure this out. I can just take it apart. I'll just put it back together.
Well, that's the thing. I would have to go all the way to step 1 to fucking follow the instructions, and I was gonna do that because it came in multiple boxes, flat packed, so that it was like more shippable. But I don't have those boxes anymore. There was no way I was gonna walk around with like each leg is like easily like 4 pieces. There's 3 legs, and then like there's like at least like a 3-piece kind of like web of cross braces in between each leg. So it's like,
well, I guess when you're disassembling and reassembling a desk, you're not actually going back to square one.
No way.
Right? You're just taking off the crucial pieces so it can move.
Exactly. So I took off the desktop, which is in 2 pieces. One is a kind of normal 60 by 30 deep desktop, and then the other one's a 30 by 30 like little leaf that makes up the full length of the desk. That was easy enough. Those are all just wood screws that go into the bottom. There were a couple of rubber gaskets that are meant to go between the metal bits of the legs and the wood that help with the vibrations. That definitely got lost. So hopefully, I think so far I've moved it up and down a few times. It doesn't rattle too much or anything. Hopefully the ones that are left are enough.
I mean, that, and also, like, every time you distance level and put something together, you have taken off X amount of time from its total lifespan in a way that is, there's nothing you could do about it, right? Like, it's these are meant to, objects like this are truly really meant to stay together. They're not supposed to come apart and go back together.
When I've accepted that when I move, the bed that I use and the desk that I use, gone.
Yeah.
So not my problem anymore.
Because they cannot be reassembled, or you're choosing this as a moment in time in your life to say no to these objects. I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I can get better ones.
Yeah. No,
Nice.
that is exactly what I mean. Well, for one of them, I'm not going to take if I move in the next few months, it would be to cohabitate. And so, like, I'm not taking my second bed with it. I'm not going to be a 2-bed home. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you comedy joking me right now? No. A 2-couch home? Sure. 2-bed? The fuck are you talking about?
You said that you might live in a world with 2 PS5s, and like, why limit yourself to not being able to play a PS5 in a bed as well?
Counterpoint.
That just seems like truly glamorous.
Another counterpoint, food bed.
Food bed.
Food bed.
Food bed. Someone resurfaced that PAX
oh my god.
MTV Cribs video. It was incredible. Really good.
God, food bed's tough. Food bed remains tough for me. I try not to partake in food bed.
No, you shouldn't.
Try.
If I have to school
that's
my
why
children
you need
for it, one
the
should
food
not.
bed. The second bed.
One is just a food bed.
One is just a food
Yeah.
bed. That's the whole thing.
You know what? And one underrated potential upside of this is if you want to get rid of the rats in Rob's place, the food bed could be a new home for them.
There you go.
And maybe they would pass on that information through the rat network. Like, hey, you hear about this food bed?
Oh my god.
The desk that I use is a real piece of shit. The desk I use sucks. So it sucks as bad as you can imagine a desk sucking. While still being like an L-shaped desk. It's not a good desk. I remember I purchased the desk right after my current partner and I broke up for the first time. And she's an interior designer. I remember when she came over for the first time in like 7 months to hang out and watch The Lord of the Rings. She saw this desk and was like, "That's not happening. That's
and that's where the breakup occurred. She saw the desk. And
exactly.
By the way,
that's understandable, frankly.
That's when she was like,
over.
"Never again." I already did this once, and now I see your dog shit desk. Never again. Little did she know.
So your desk is back together.
Yeah.
I saw any other notable moving quirks. Well, hey, one year when the second apartment I moved to in San Francisco, this story makes me sound like a real dumbass, but we were moving and someone asked, like, I had gotten up to the third floor or whatever we were at, and someone who introduced themselves as my neighbor, like, "Oh, hey, you moving in there?" I was like, "Yeah." And my wife was there. Another friend that was helping us move was there. So there was like a steady flow of people going between the rental van and the apartment, and only like 2 flights of stairs. They're like, "Hey, like, I just got locked out of my place. Like, can I call someone really quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Absentmindedly, I was like, "My wife is coming up the stairs now. Like, just chill here and like she'll get the phone back from you." That person fled into another apartment on the same floor, did not go down. There was nowhere else to go but down. Just took the phone. Like, I went down the stairs, come back up, and I was like, "Hey, did you get my phone?" He's like, "What phone?" Like, what do you mean, what phone? The guy was just here. Dude borrowed my phone to call their friend. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Knocked on all the doors. Like,
Oh my
called
god.
the police. They were like, what do you want us to do? Like, bust into these doors? And then like called the landlord. They're like, "What do you want me to do? Bust in?" I was like, "There's nothing I can do here. I shit out of luck on this phone. Like, losing a phone, like, back then was not like, I was not easily
that sucks.
replaceable." I ended up buying like a flip phone for a couple of months while I like figured out the finances on like getting another one. The whole
Did you
reason we were
ever
moving
see that person again? Wait, you moving out?
Like,
sorry.
Well, I presume what happened is they just waited us out. Like they were hiding in someone's apartment that they knew, and then
you
left
just do
to
a
go.
Stakeout situation all night.
I thought about it. I mean, I thought about it. Did not end up doing the stakeout situation. I mean, the closest I've gotten to confronting someone on like this was right after I moved to San Francisco. I had like a Canon DSLR, like a decent camera, and we had gotten a burrito and had sat down. We're sitting down in this tiny little place. It's a Cancun Taqueria that's just off of Market, near the where the cable car goes up. And I set it down in front of me, and we're the table nearest to the door. And just I had taken it off, put it down in front of me. Someone runs in, grabs it, bolts. I am shook, like I've been hit with a bolt of electricity. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Someone just took my camera off of the table and ran. And my wife just turns to me and goes, "Run." And I'm like, okay. And so I run out of the establishment, like see someone sprinting around the corner. I follow them around the corner. I see them go into an alleyway. I follow them into the alleyway. It's daytime, I should be clear. If it was nighttime, I would not have attempted any of this. Shouldn't have attempted it, but I was 22, like 21, 22. Like, you can do anything.
I would not do this.
Get into that alleyway. And he looks at me kind of like the stranger, the merchant from Resident Evil 4. Like, what do you want, stranger? Like, is holding the camera, looks at me and goes, "Do you want to do this?" And I said, "No." And then I walked away.
Correct. You made the correct decision.
Wow.
Do you want to do this? The answer is always no.
The answer was no.
If someone asks you, like, do you want to do something? Like, hey, do you want to go do this? No. No. Do you want to do, like, that's fine. But do you want to do this?
This.
If the this is left unspoken, you do not want to do it.
You don't,
It was left
want to know
unspoken.
what this is.
This will go poorly.
Yeah, so I let that go with a sense of accomplishment that I took it to as far as I could before my fight or flight kicked in. Went across the street. There were some cops hanging out. I was like, "Hey, my camera just got stolen. That guy's he was in the alleyway." Like, well, he's probably gone now. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, what do you, like, this is a tourist area. Like, I'm sure this happens fairly frequently. They're like, yeah. Like, so what? Like, what's your recommendation? I'm like, well, you could fill out a stolen form, but, you know, like, that's, like, we're not going to find your camera. I was like, okay. It's like, because what they're going to do is they're going to take it and immediately take it to a pawn shop, and there just won't be a trace of it. They said your best solution, if you, like, if this really means a lot to you, is to look up all the pawn shops that are, like, within a block or two, and then try to find that camera at the pawn shop, ask them to turn it on, and they're like, most likely your pictures are still going to be there. And if you tell a place, "That's my camera, it was stolen," like, most of the time they'll give it to you. I looked at a couple pawn shops, never found it. No. That camera went by. So that was terrible. But that's my story. Anything else notable from this moving adventure, Cado?
Yeah, I broke my body. This is
Oh, hey.
I feel like that was half your tweets. It was just like, in summation, was just ugh.
yeah.
Cado's Twitter.
I think
Did you break your phone
This is
as part of this process?
Oh, that's a different thing.
All
I'll
right.
tell that story next.
Okay.
This is definitely the last time I'm moving without movers. I was like,
You are too old for this, frankly.
Yeah.
we did it though. I mean, there's 3 of us, so, like, you know, we thought surely getting a queen size bed up a flight of stairs isn't that bad. But it broke me. It did. You know, you ever do that thing where you stand in a doorway and push your arms out against the doorway for a little bit?
Yeah.
And then you step out and your arms, like, kind of float up. I had that happen on accident in, like, an L shape of my arms from lift. Like, I couldn't move my arms down from that position for, like, a minute. It was very, very bad. So, yeah.
Discovering new muscles in your body.
Yeah, it was not good. I'm just now, and that was Sunday, not this past Sunday, like yesterday, but a week ago from yesterday when we're recording this. And I think my body is at like 80% still. I think I don't feel sore.
Are you ever going to recover the remaining 20, or do we just consider this a new?
I don't know. This might be I'm technically stronger if that's how that works, right? Your muscles rip and all that shit, and then they regrow. So I'm a little bit stronger. So let's call that 90 and call it even, I guess. I
have a clarifying question.
What's that?
When you say you carried a bed up the stairs, do you mean you carried a bed frame? You carried like a box spring? You carried like a mattress? Like what of the things you carrying, and are you carrying multiple at a time?
We have a queen-sized mattress that is special. It's like what if you had both a foam mattress and a spring mattress all together in one, and it's also queen sized. So
that sounds
it's like
very comfortable.
It is. It's super fucking comfortable. It's been great for my back over the years, but it's also weighs a fucking ton. It weighs, the size of a small car.
Right, because it's got double the stuff.
Yeah, it is thick. It is it is thicker than a regular mattress is. And it's filled with extra things, and it's just very, very heavy. So that's what I was moving, was the mattress. The mattress frame, we have like a drawers situation from IKEA that has drawers for storage under the bed.
I have one of these. Whoa. Cado.
Is it the light, like, beigey one? Is it the same thing? I have a different color. Yours is the black one. I have the beige one, but it's similar. It's that sort of thing. Do you have on both sides?
No, my bed is against the wall. We've gone over the orientation of my bedroom enough on a live stream, Cado. We don't need to do this here.
But if it was not against the wall,
so is mine. But we basically put long-term storage on the drawers that would be accessible on the other side, and just dump it in there. And then never get it.
Then you have to move the bed if you need to get access.
Yeah, if I need it, but we rarely need that stuff. It's more like, once a year we'll pull something out from there.
The headboard is stored underneath my bed currently because I took the headboard off because I'm not going to have a headboard if it's not, again, that's silly. I think
we can't.
Cado, we've gone over this. We can't do this again.
We can't let Ren do this because she's just we're just going to get people writing in.
Yeah.
And we can't subject Ren to the headboard discourse a second.
Again. I just
you said pillows don't fall off the bed. You didn't have to bring up the headboard.
I did because Cado asked where I.
No, we asked about the side of the bed. You're the one that wanted to wade back into the headboard discourse. Cado, all right, let's finish this off. What happened to your goddamn phone?
Fucking crock.
Okay, so the good thing, and part of the reason that I'm back to 80% at all, is that first half of the week was full on moving. Second half of the week had originally been planned long time ago on a small 3-day outing with some friends up in the Catskills in the New York Hudson Valley area, because one of my friends really likes to snowboard and was going to teach us.
Great thing to do after your body's had the shit
did not happen because we got up there. I mean, this wasn't the whole point of it. Actually, we called the trip Air D&D because it's our D&D group, and we got an Airbnb.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Aww.
And so we played D&D, and during the day we were gonna do snowboarding, but the one guy who was really into snowboarding already ended up going by himself and just snowboarding down the freshly, there was a blizzard just the week before, so it was actually perfect timing. Probably the last good storm that area is gonna get for this year. So I spent a day and a half just laying and hurting, but also playing some D&D. At this place, there was a really, really neat kind of separated cabana situation. It was a little raised deck with a hot tub in it.
Hell yeah.
I think you can see where this is going, essentially. At a certain point, we were like, let's get in the hot tub. it's also like 35 degrees out. So you're trying to make that trip from house to cabana hot tub as quickly as possible.
That's also that extreme in temperatures makes the experience of getting in so much better. Like, I know that tiptoe is no fun, but actually it's sort of just, you kind of need it.
Yeah,
like,
it's good.
Absolutely. You kind of want to feel like a little bit like shit. So once you get in there, it's just overwhelming.
It's great. But yeah, the tiptoe is actually pretty long. Like, it's like solid, like 50 foot path of like running through. The snow was intense. There was the path that we had to dig out was like, there was 3 feet of snow, like alongside each side of the path. It was like a little tunnel almost. So of course I'm running for my goddamn life as quickly as you can run in like plastic croc-like sandals that they leave so that you don't track mud. They leave specific sandals so you don't track mud into the house. These are the cabana sandals, and I'm running. Getting to the cabana, I was like, great, I'm here, I'm getting into the warm. I jump in as quickly as possible, and I settle in. I'm like, amazing, great.
Phone.
About a minute goes by. About a minute when I feel a little in my pocket.
About a minute or two, etc., etc.
Oh, and I fucking freak out. I throw my phone. I throw it out of the water, grab it from my pocket where I foolishly had placed it. And it was on, so I turned it off as quickly as I could and then threw it out there. I was like, I'm sure it's fine. iPhones are,
they're pretty resistant these days.
Yeah, they're pretty waterproof up to a certain point, I think I'm okay.
A lot of qualifiers there.
Well, I mean, they probably would have been okay had I not cracked my phone screen like 2 weeks ago and therefore broken the seal that would normally keep it waterproof.
Yeah. I would have said otherwise. I would have been pretty confident that you would have been
I was
okay.
sure.
Like the phone would have been fine.
I was sure it was fine. And I dried it off. I was like, there's no water in here, right? I shook it from every direction. I hit the power button. And let me tell you, the sizzle that I heard.
Oh, you heard the sizzle?
The sizzle that I heard.
Hey, look, if it's gonna die, it might as well like do it in like a sick way.
I thought, oh, maybe it's I literally had the thought for 1 second. Maybe it's just drying itself. Because I was just so out of like I was so tired.
The funny part is the watch does have a water exhaust function. So
right,
if the water, because it's meant to be like you can swim with it,
right,
and things like that to measure exercise. And when I've taken it into like the pool with me, like eventually like you'll get out and it kind of like beeps at you, and then you have to like turn the little knob and it like goes. And it spits the water out. So I mean, you're not far off.
This
like
is
there
probably
are
what I was thinking of when I was like, there's some sort of thing that these phones do, right?
Yeah.
No, it was
close.
definitely
it was just the wrong device. Unfortunately, Cado.
It was absolutely just whatever chip had gotten the wettest, dying. It's small heat. It was very warm
whatever
too.
Chip had gotten the wettest.
Yeah. It was rough. So now I have no phone. I've ordered a new one. It's supposed to arrive on Tuesday, but it's been weird not having a phone.
I'm sorry about your phone. I'm glad that you're in your apartment, and or at least attempting to achieve some form of normalcy. Because that is especially once you're old enough to have stuff like that makes moves harder and harder as you get older because you accrue more and more permanent stuff to kind of go between places. But let's talk about a little bit of news before we get into the games that we've been playing. A real bummer news right in the middle of Ren and I streaming Exoprimal was the news that Lance Reddick, a beloved, I think longtime character actor, but like became like graduated beyond that stature, I think, to just like beloved actor.
Great voice actor as well. Just like
in
every possible thing.
Yeah. Lance Reddick, known for the Wire, John Wick, the whole host of incredible credits in video games. Obviously, the things closest to us, the Horizon series was a main character. Is it Commander or Captain Zavala?
Commander.
In Destiny 2.
Commander Zavala.
Apologies. I need to show the utmost respect. To Mr. Zavala, and passed away. As far as I know, I don't no foul play or anything is suspected. This is just, I think, unfortunate and the kind of thing that happens every once in a while. There was a statement released by the family to Lance Reddick's Twitter account, which he is no longer with us, but I cannot recommend more highly scrolling through Lance Reddick's Twitter account. It is some of the most wholesome, delightful. Like, it's just fantastic. Like, there's so many reasons to be sad that he's not with us, but his presence on the Hell site was like this brief, like shimmering, like beam of positivity and humor that is at least for now still archived and accessible. But Stephanie Riddick released this statement. Lance was taken from us far too soon. Thank you for all your overwhelming love, support, and beautiful stories shared on these platforms over the last day. I see your messages and can't begin to express how grateful I am to have them. And to the thousands of Destiny players who played in special tribute to Lance, thank you. Lance loved you as much as he loved the game. Donations may be made to momcares.org in Baltimore, his hometown. Signed, Stephanie Riddick. Cado, starting on Friday and over the weekend, there are lots of reports of folks like signing in and emoting and paying their respects to Lance Reddick as a result of this news. You, more than anyone, have probably spent the most time listening to Lance Reddick's voice, given the fact that you've played far more Destiny than any of us. What did you make of hearing this when the news came through on Friday?
I mean, it was, heart-wrenching, surprising. He was, relatively young at 60. Like, you don't expect it, especially such a, like, I don't know. He you read about like he had like a thing planned the next week. There were no.
He's got a movie coming
issues.
out this weekend.
Yeah,
he's just a new John Wick film is coming out in several days.
Devastating to hear, and just like I don't know what's I don't know that they could ever replace him as Zavala. Like,
No.
He had thrown so much of himself into that character, and especially his time off like not even in the booth, right? Like so many videos that he made on Twitter and like were just him doing basically free lines as Zavala. Like, he was always interacting with the community. It was super into all things Destiny, and like really like
he played the game.
Yeah,
right? I think that's like a pretty. I think if you were to ask,
he rated
the average person, like, do you think Lance Reddick's really into Destiny 2? He'd be like, oh, come on, like he's just a Hollywood actor taking the check, and like no, like the Bungie folks who have been coming out after the fact, sharing stories of their interactions with him behind the scenes. Like, I don't know which, I unfortunately don't have the thread in front of me, but it was like one of the, senior folks at Bungie who was like brought in because Lance sent a request to the studio. He was having trouble with like one of the raids.
Yeah.
And was looking for help and wasn't looking to be carried. Like they thought they were coming in to carry Lance Reddick.
Right.
Like Patrick Klepek through like, hey, this punk doesn't know what they're doing. Like, let's just let him get the loot at the end. And like the way the story is told is like, no, like he came in like with a fully kitted character, was like directing traffic, like knew their role, played a pivotal moment towards like the end when the team was about to wipe against the boss and like stuns the boss, like reses people, like just an incredible, like shows how much that game meant to him beyond just being a role that he became well known for and iconic behind.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, please, Cado.
I was just gonna say, and like, I just barely put together my computer to be here today, so I didn't get to log on over the weekend to see these firsthand, but just an outpouring of people, like you were mentioning before, paying their respects at Zavala, who is a he's a quest giver that's in the tower in a kind of central location. So there was just the way that these things will happen in MMOs, like people just crowds and crowds of people gathering around that character and, you know, paying their respects. And he will be sorely missed, and especially in the Destiny community for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Ren, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, it's just like, it's just such a bummer because like Lance Reddick really is one of those people who like truly elevates anything that he's in, or elevated anything that he was in. And like I had an extended conversation this weekend about whether or not like movie stars as a thing should exist as like a class of person, right? And one of the things I was thinking about that entire time was like Lance Reddick as like this like phenomenal essential character actor who became just like who was also like a terrific dramatic actor. And I like look at someone like Lance Reddick and I'm like, yeah, no, like these people should exist, right? Like this is a worthwhile thing to be. And like he is such a tremendous encapsulation of like why that is. And it's just a huge bummer. I really wish that like, you know, I wish that he had gotten a thing, or like a thing that was built for him. In a way, like when I think about like other character actors who I really love, like Harry Dean Stanton, or you know, even character actors who I don't love but who I think have gotten like a thing, like for example, like Adam Sandler, right? I want to see the movie that was built for Lance Reddick, in the same way that like Uncut Gems was built for Adam Sandler, or Paris, Texas was built for Harry Dean Stanton, right? I'm so sad we never got to see that like culmination of a life's work of developing a specific kind of guy, and it's just like it's a huge bummer in like every conceivable way, on both like a tragic that a human being died and like tragic on like an artistic level. It's a huge bummer.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'll be very curious to see what Bungie ends up doing. Obviously, I'm sure there's lots of leftover recordings or things that were in development for the future.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be as stupid headed as to like try and like continue the character with AI or anything like that. No. But one would hope they would be able to cobble together in the way that, you know, has happened in the past, where like, do you have enough audio data in front of you to give this character like a send off, as opposed to just like, I don't think Zavala is just going to disappear from the tower. Like got in a ship and, you know, disappeared. I hope they're able to some way weave in something that you would imagine, given Reddick's connection to the game, would have wanted, was like a farewell fitting of the character's impact to the game, to its players, and a sign of respect to how much he gave back to that. Because it's not uncommon to have Hollywood actors parachute into projects like this, but it's very rare to have them become central to the community. And so hopefully Bungie's able to find a way to make something that makes sense.
He was the last one of the big three that were still around, right? Like the big three were, you know, you got Nathan Fillion as Cade, Gina Torres as Ikora, and Lance Reddick as Zavala. And, you know, they killed Cade, so they didn't have to keep paying. What's his face? I just said his name and I've lost it already. Nathan Fillion. And I think that was part of the reason that they like slowly phased out Gina Torres as well.
Some of this happened during the pivot to like the weekly storytelling model, right?
Yeah.
Where there was just in like to some degree a higher demand of like, we're gonna need. It's not like we're releasing a sequel every 18 months. We like need lots of voice lines, and at some point the cadence of that was maybe just not sustainable.
Right. It's like for those people are busy. And like Lance Reddick was also busy, but he loved the game.
My guess is you wouldn't like you come to Lance Reddick and say, "Hey, we're killing Zavala to save money." I think he would have. I don't think that was an option. No, that's the one character you couldn't do it to. He would just keep showing up,
and he was always also kind of the, you know, like as the character was like kind of very central in like that group of three. Like it was a triad, but it was really like he was commander. He was in charge. There used to be a faction in Destiny 1 that wanted to make him the new monarch, called New Monarchy. And you know, Lance threw like everything he could into that character, and it really, you know, it shined through. It was a compelling performance every time he got on the stage, on the digital stage.
I mean, that's like his whole thing is like, he is one of those dudes who will always put in a compelling performance, like regardless of what the actual work is. And like,
and command's a good word because he just has one of those presences that you just cannot look away from, whether it's a comedic or dramatic or like whatever the tone is. The man starts to speak and you listen.
There have been so many great comedic performances that I hadn't actually seen from him that people were
the Toys R Us one has been the big one that's been going around recently, where I think that's one of the Funny or Die bits that he did a long time ago.
There's a bit from an Eric Andre skit that I'd never seen that was amazing.
The one where he slaps the table and basically scares the shit out of Eric Andre.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And there's some other one where he's like playing some suit, telling someone about their septic tank. Full of
cum. Yeah.
Is this from that show? There's a show. Is
I forget
that
what
show
it's
Corporate?
called. Maybe. But the faces he's making in that clip are just amazing. Like, as much as he's known like most for his dramatic roles in The Wire, and Fringe was the first place that I actually interacted with or saw him the most. That was like my introduction to him and his work. Like some of those comedic pieces makes me wish almost that like there was more of that out there, because he can really he's a funny guy. Like you saw this in the times that he would post and interact with the Destiny community. He was goofy as hell, and he loved cracking jokes when he could. It's really, yeah.
I mean, again, this is the one of the fundamental truths of the character actor as form is that like a lot of he's extremely funny, and part of the fact that he's extremely funny is the rest of his career. And like the intertextuality there is like, one, from like a how media works perspective, very cool, and two, just like a sign of like how wildly talented he was like as a performer.
Yeah.
God, such a bummer.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere, that was just worth noting that Respawn is opening up a studio in Madison, Wisconsin, which is noteworthy because that is the same location that Raven Software has a QA studio, or a studio out there that also functions broadly to work as support on the Call of Duty games. Their QA team is going through a unionization effort out there. So I think it's just really interesting that of all the places you would open a studio about supporting an ongoing shooter would be in Madison, Wisconsin, which, as someone, that spends a lot of time in Wisconsin, has been to Madison, I also think it's just cool that there's more places out here that are building video games out here in the Midwest. But I think that is a fascinating place to put that down.
Do you know anything about tax breaks there? Like, is this as much a city tax break situation as it is a let's put a thing close to
I don't know.
studio?
It's definitely possible. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, certainly that could be Madison trying to attract, like Chicago, obviously it attracts a lot of businesses and talent and resources, but wouldn't shock me if Madison was trying to also do the same sort of thing, because it functions similar to, there's Milwaukee and Madison, the two big, sort of hubs in Wisconsin there. And you could absolutely be right, Ren, but I don't know that off the top of my head. What I do know off the top of my head is that a game that Ren and I were mostly just playing for the goofs, and then came out on the other side going, I think this might be one of the games I'm most excited to play later this year on Friday.
Oh, hell yes.
Dude started to rock, and so did the dinos when you and I were streaming Exoprimal, a new game from Capcom that is, I don't know if the beta is still going on. It's probably finished by the time this podcast is out. I don't know the exact duration. I'll look that up while we're talking, but Ren, you and I had a chance to play this game for a couple hours on Friday. Yep. Can you set up for people, I don't know, sort of our expectations going in, or your own expectations, and what actually this game is all about?
So I remember the only clip I saw of Exoprimal before booting that shit up, and this was the right way to do it. Let me be clear. I didn't play Dino Crisis as a youth. I have not thought for a second about what would happen if you shot a gun at a dinosaur. Didn't ponder it. Didn't consider it. I've seen Turok. I know it exists. I didn't think about it. And then I saw a clip depicting thousands of raptors falling from the top of a skyscraper, hitting the ground, bouncing, bones breaking off the ground until the raptors piled so high that their bodies broke the fall of their brethren.
I mean, there's this scene, World War Z, not a very good movie.
Yeah.
But there's the scene where the zombies trying to scale one of the last major cities essentially just topple on top of tens of thousands of toppling on top of each other to scale this wall.
Yes.
That is the sense of raptor chaos that is at play in Exoprimal.
And as the raptors fall from the sky, bouncing off the ground, bouncing off our heroes, there stands someone wearing an anthem-ass exosuit with a cool sword. And then they're just cutting through raptors. And I saw that clip and I was like, oh, shit. And then Patrick sent a message being like, we should play Exoprimal for stream this Friday. And I was like, I'm not looking at anything else. I'm going in totally fucking blind. I boot up the game 20 minutes before we start that fucking stream. And then it's like, there's a horny robot lady who tells you that she's stain-proof for some reason.
Baby.
And I'm like, what's happening? I load into the game and I am met with an Overwatch-style class system, a character-based class system where I see that there are attack, tank, and support characters, baby. And there's like 12 of them. And I suddenly realize that Exoprimal is not just a game about fighting fighting dinosaurs. It is also a hero shooter. And a really fucking good one at that.
Yeah, I think the good one, like, I wanted to check this out. So I just looked up, the beta is over. There was an open beta this weekend and it finished on Sunday.
Shit.
But it's launching on Game Pass later this year.
Hell yeah.
So I think this summer. This is a perfect game to be a Game Pass game. Like that's a smart choice on Capcom's part. But yeah, I, like you, Ren, I love dinosaurs, had played Dino Crisis, and mostly have been upset that as Capcom has revisited many of its franchises, it has continued to ignore the plight of the Dino Crisis fan, despite how cool dinosaurs would look in the RE engine, which is powering most of what Capcom does these days, including this game. This is also running in the RE engine. Like, as most Japanese studios, or most studios, are switching to different middleware solutions, you know, we've talked about this on the podcast, pretty much everyone's moving to Unreal Engine. Capcom just like out here making the slickest piece of tech in decades, and all their games run excellent and really smooth on it. I was like, okay, there's a game with mechs and dinosaurs. This would be something for you and I to do for a couple of hours, and we'll get some good goofs, some good bits out of it. And I remember telling you, I did like one round of it to wrap my head around it, make sure the game ran fine and I could stream it fine. And then when we jumped in, what I told you as you were kind of doing you can switch between the classes in this like minute countdown before the actual match begins was, hey, I think the thing you're going to notice right off the bat is how good it feels to control these characters. Like, it is not just like a funny bit like rendered with like excellent fidelity, but that the moment you're controlling these characters, like moving, dodging, shooting, all feels fantastic. Like, it is just a really good action game.
And the other thing, like, it all feels fantastic and distinct, right? Like, each suit feels like wildly distinct from one another in a way that is like really kind of surprising. There is not just like one feel across the board. It is a bunch of different character feels that I think like come together in like a really compelling way. I think like even if it didn't have all the dinosaurs in it, I think this would actually be like a pretty competent like hero shooter in terms of like how these different characters feel and look and are designed. I think it's a very well-made game, and also it's full of dinosaurs that you're constantly fighting in. Just like also like the structure of it is fascinating, right? It is the basic game mode has it's PvE and then PvEVP. So the PvE mode is you're just trying to kill dinosaurs or complete objectives faster than the enemy team. To
like
try
clear out these like 100-esque, like, 100. I mean, it's hard to like pin down the amount, that is spawning, but it's in the hundreds.
It's 100
regularly.
Raptors. Right, like
hundreds of raptors, and then there are like larger dinosaurs that kind of act as sort of like mid-boss, like boss type enemies, and like a lot of the objectives are different, right? Like sometimes it'll be, hey, stick around a box as it moves forward. Right. Other times it'll be, hey, like these cartridges, just basically a resource, like spawn somewhere in the map. You've got to run over there and collect 100 of them before the other team does. And like all of these are mixed in between moments of interacting with other players and then interacting with your team relative to where you are on the objective.
It's really well done, and also like just like clever. It's a really clever way to do this. Is that like if you shine in the PvE section, you will get a significant head start on starting the final PvP section, and like that feels great to like get that little bit of a head start. However, I will say this: if you do great in the PvE section and your team just doesn't know how to fight other people, you are a little bit fucked, which happened to us several times, as every team Patrick and I played on had just the worst possible team comps. Just like not just the worst possible team comps.
Well, but I think what it points to is when you're in the. So one thing we should note is that in this specific game, you can switch to any other character class or character at any time. Yeah. It is not something that is limited to the round. You can switch once you've died and you're waiting for the like kind of res cooldown to clear, or like in the middle of a match, if like, hey, we just really need a sniper, you can switch to a sniper. You jump out of your exosuit, like you're a soldier until like this other meter cools down, and then you press a button combination and boom, you're back in to the new suit. So there is a real level of dynamism that is at play here. And in the PvE stuff, and we should be clear, like in this open beta, which is like you don't get decisions over what modes you're playing. You're just kind of thrown into whatever the game tosses at you. They are all mashups of PvE and PvP. Like you are required to engage with both in order to be successful in these matches. The PvE stuff really leans into like, I don't know, like I kind of want to be a tank right here. Like this, like there's not as much pressure on character class and character dynamics. And then there are these pressure points that occur often at the beginning and almost always at the end, depending on the mode that you're, or like the map you're playing and the objective you're playing, where like the dynamics of the team are really important on the PvP part. You have to have like a tank here. You should have a sniper here. You need a support character. Like, and if you don't have those, like you're gonna get railroaded by any team that is actually engaging, even like mildly competently with like the support structure that comes from a like several characters that are working in tandem with one another. And like one of the things that I found in like the 8 rounds or so that we played, Ren, was like when you have one person like not collaborating in that direction, is sort of just maybe understandably screwing around, and is like wants to just try a bunch of different classes, you can't win. No, like you will not win. And that makes me interested to see what is the full breadth of what this game is all of it this sort of dynamic, because I think that's going to make it a challenge for it to be enjoyable over the long term for certain types of players who are like, hey, I'd really like shooting up the dinosaurs, and it's okay if I interact with some players, but like if it turns into deathmatch at the end, like that's going to be difficult when you're matched up with random people who are kind of just goofing or stunting around. And that's what we ran into kind of over and over again. Even if you be really generous, it's like a lack of communication between our team was resulting in like 2 players being the same character. And like, you just shouldn't do that. Like you just shouldn't. And the game doesn't stop you. You can be 4 healers if you wanted to, but you shouldn't probably.
Yeah. I mean, like also the other thing is that like, to be fair, we are playing the game during the 3-day long open beta, where people are just like stumbling in being like, oh, dinosaurs, and haven't had the like literally 35 minutes to sit there and figure out what they should actually be playing.
And anybody can download it, right? This is open season to like anybody that wants to try the game, as opposed to a more self-selecting group of people who are like, I'm going to pay money and want to engage with this experience, and I know what a hero shooter is. I guess Game Pass sort of is the closest we get to a kind of free-for-all in that regard. But you're definitely right. Like, expecting quality play from an open beta is perhaps you need to set your expectations slightly differently. But I think the reason it was frustrating was because we were having such a good time with everything else that it was just frustrating to get to the end and not be able to close like at least 1 or 2 matches and have that full experience.
And the PvP, like I was doing okay. And like that was the tragic bit, is that like we were doing, Patrick, we were doing all right. Hey, we were doing all right. And like also like the characters are really satisfying. Like it is that the...
Do you want to describe some of the characters that you were playing
please.
as? Because I know that you really fell in love with a couple in particular.
So I ended up really liking the game's 2 primary melee characters. The melee tank and the melee DPS are both like so fucking fun. The Zephyr is the melee DPS who basically has like these 2 swords. They dash all the way around. They have an uppercut attack, and then they have an attack where they like shoulder check a group of enemies into a wall. And so the game has this like Dynasty Warriors-esque energy of like, I'm going to be hitting
strong
15
Muso energy
guys at
to this
once.
game in general.
Yes. And like landing that shoulder check means you do an initial burst of damage when you shoulder check someone, and then when they slam and like splat against the wall, you get to do additional damage and stun them. And so like if you get a player in the wrong position and you shoulder check them against the wall, if you like shoulder check, hit twice, uppercut, hit once more, you will kill someone in a way that is just like endlessly satisfying. If you can like get someone out of position in that way. And then their ult basically means that every time you land a hit with your melee attacks, it cuts the cooldown of your activated abilities of that shoulder check and that like upward like uppercut ability. And so you just become a fucking dervish on the battlefield as just like cutting through everything, slamming people into walls, dashing all over the fucking place. It's so satisfying. The other one I ended up really liking was the melee tank, who is a counter-based tank, where you have this ability that seems really good at fighting other players and not at all built to fight dinosaurs, where the melee tank has like a pretty long, like a pretty like wide-ranging melee attack, a like your like standard like EI slash where you like, you know, store your sword and like wait for a minute and then you unsheath it in like one big wide hit. And then a grappling hook that lets you like grab something environment, throw yourself to it, and then do like a spinning stab as you go towards the ground. And so like a slow character with one good movement ability, and then finally this like shield that you can do that works for like 10 seconds maybe, blocks all damage. You hold it for like 5-10 seconds. And if you block enough damage during it, you gain access to a counter that if you use it, does this like massive knock-up attack that does like a truly disgusting amount of damage. And so if you can get this character into an enemy team and like right in the middle of them and then activate that counter and you are fighting in close range, if you do it, you can like absolutely devastate an entire enemy team if you're able to like sneak into their back line by using that grappling hook. And like I think that its cooldowns are a little bit long, but I worry that if they were any shorter, it would be just completely broken. But it is a really, really fun melee class. And also like the thing that's worth noting here is that all of these classes are like very easily distinguishable visually, at least for me. I got like pretty good at being like, okay, I know how to I know what each tank looks like, and I know the different strategies for dealing with each tank. You know, the big like Reinhardt like shield guy, I know how to deal with that dude. Like the answer to that guy is you have to get behind him or like try and like send a backliner in, right? The answer for the minigun dude was to send in a melee character who can get in underneath the shield. I actually think that the melee tank would be a hard counter to the bubble shield tank. And then finally for the melee tank, it is keep them at range. And they really struggle in the PvE sections. And so like all of these characters like pretty well designed visually and like have solid abilities. And I was just like very, very impressed by how everything came together and like already the points of synergy that I could see between everything. The supports are great too. I think a lot of games like this are really scared of giving debuff based supports because CC-based supports can be really annoying in this style of game. And so this game was like, all right, we're not going to have CC supports plural. There is going to be one support who is going to fuck with your movement and act as a hard counter to that melee DPS I mentioned earlier. If I got hit with the movement restricting support, I was dead. And that was like a really cool.
You could tell there were just moments where you would just see. It's like as you got hit by that by one of the. I think we were moving a cube, and like that was like one where we had someone that was fucking with you on with that, which was neat. It just seems really well made, really well thought out. I know that when the beta concluded, or some people were. I saw some of the stuff that was mentioned in the survey where Capcom was asking like, would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? And one of the modes that was floated was a 10-person PvE mode, and there is a sequence, Cado, in the stream where we're in a sort of like a city level, and we are making our way forward, and the game says, "Oh, holy shit! Like we gotta stop. Like we stay where you are. Like a black hole is emerging." And you look to the sky, and there's just this like big pulsing black orb, and all of a sudden, thousands of raptors start pouring out of it, and they're all just barreling towards you. And then it's just a section where you have to survive for 2 or 3 minutes, and there's not much for you to do other than just to spam your attacks. It's really less strategy as much as just like everyone use what you got and like try to get to the other side of it. And it's incredible. And the idea that like it never slows down, like never had any frame rate hitches, seemed like they weren't even pushing it as far as they could. Like a 10-person mode like that is just mowing down, and it, like dinosaurs just give me that. Give me that. So I'll be curious to see how much of that final game is able to kind of satisfy that urge, while also pointing out that I think the PvE stuff is really neat and goofy, but and I'm curious to see what they can expand on it and like what's present in the final game. But there's not like a whole lot of tactical, like these are sort of just like dummy characters like dropped into the world, and I could imagine that tiring pretty quickly if the objectives weren't interesting in it. Like the actual fighting of like an average raptor is like you're kind of fighting smoke. Like there's not a whole lot to it. So I'll be curious what Capcom actually does with making all of that interesting, or if what we find out is that actually it is like a really heavy PvP PvE game, and if that PvP part doesn't appeal to you, then you know maybe this game won't fully click. But definitely a game that has gone from I don't think I care outside of like chuckling at these trailers with the dinosaurs to I am absolutely going to be playing this when it comes out to see what else Capcom has got going on, because I didn't know that I needed to play this live service mech dino game from Capcom, but it turns out that I do. Yeah. And that's just a good place to be. I'd rather live in a world where I want to play the Capcom dinosaur game than not.
Patrick.
Yes.
What if you and I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What if we were the first stars of Exoprimal esports?
Just get in on the ground floor. Really good at Exoprimal.
What if we get in on the ground floor and become the biggest Exoprimal players in the world?
Look, the media landscape is complicated right now. Got to be thinking of exit plans, and one of those could be Capcom. We would really like early access to Exoprimal because we're just very interested in covering it for our website. Yeah. Thank you. While we actually are secretly just prepping to become esports champions.
Weird how Ren and Patrick didn't have anything on the podcast to talk about for 3 consecutive months, except for vague mumblings about dinosaurs. That was kind of weird. That era of Waypoint
we're gonna add Exoprimal gets added to the list like Destiny 2 of like, oh well, it's more Destiny talk, and it's like, oh, more Exoprimal talk. Their Waypoint goes again. So yes, look, go check out that stream. It was a lot of fun to play that game, and it's always nice to get excited about something that you had previously kind of been ambivalent about. I was not down on it, but I did not think it was something that was for me. And I think a lot more people should be paying attention to it. Before we hit the break, this morning I had a chance to play like 90 minutes of the Diablo IV beta, which is in early access for a lot of press. And if you paid a bunch of money for like some deluxe copy of the game, there'll be a more widespread open beta that I don't know if it's open. You got to buy like a KFC Double Down. I don't know how exactly. I know that's one way to get a key was to go buy a Double Down from KFC.
Can I still buy a Double Down?
I mean,
is it too late to buy a Double Down?
Cado, you have earned a Double Down.
I should get myself a Double Down.
You want one? Maybe it'll have a Diablo key. Maybe it won't. But if you want the Double Down, like I'm not gonna.
I thought Double Downs were limited time only. I didn't realize they became regular menu at this point.
I think that is the fate of like many stunt menu items is to then just become
they get too popular.
Yeah,
I mean
pretty much.
Hold on, the McRib keeps circling though. The McRib is always limited time. It's never gonna stay.
God, they sometimes used to serve that at school, and that was like a big deal. When
I
don't think it was the
that.
actual McRib.
No, I remember that, Patrick.
They made
Did they do that with you too, Ren? Like that was
yes.
Yeah,
a classic.
Were they actually from McDonald's, or were they just imitating it? I can't remember.
I feel like I had imitations. They didn't have branding, which I feel like if McDonald's was donating to schools, they would leave the branding on, right?
Yeah, because I mean, there was definitely branding on the pizza, right? Like there were times when it was like, "This is pizza from this place,"
right?
And that was meant to be like a big deal. Like, no, it is not just your cafeteria food pizza. This is actually from whatever local joint. But yeah, so I played a little bit of that. I played a lot of Diablo 1. I played a lot of Diablo 2. Didn't really play a whole lot of Diablo 3. I played like most of Diablo 3 plus one of the major expansion packs on console with a buddy. But that was mostly just an excuse to drink with them, and like things would splash on the screen. I couldn't tell you very much of like the 12 hours that I spent doing that, other than having fun catching up with a friend. But I have liked this series in the past, and was curious to see how it landed now, and like it's Diablo. And I don't mean that to. Yeah, it's Diablo again. I will say, I was very supportive of them trying to have a wider like gamut of colors to play with in Diablo 3, but I am still like a softie for the just dark, like gothic, ugly shit that was, really defined 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And this game is just like, it's all that, like done with the fidelity that you would expect from a modern game. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. I picked the sorceress, kind of like a magic user. In betas, I try to play characters that I don't think I would play when I am actually going to play the game, so I can try and convince myself to play a class.
What's your regular?
I feel like, well, usually I like character action games, and the closest I can get to that is playing like a melee barbarian character.
Right.
But the problem is I encounter this every time that when I play these games, like, yeah, but what you like about character action games is like the dynamic fluid movement and like combo systems that don't exist on games that are about like cooldown timers. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So the sorceress was, I'm gonna kind of stick around with that through the beta and see if I can figure out a path with that one. I think there's 3 classes available in the beta, and so the sorceress is the one that I've been kind of messing around with. But
do you remember who else?
The barbarian is definitely there.
Sure,
but I specifically clicked away from. I was like, I could feel the mouse hovering. No, stop it!
Not today.
Put away the big club. And then the rogue, maybe that was the 3rd one.
Okay, yeah.
That may
barbarian, sorcerer, and rogue.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so, there's some interesting things. Just from like a broader perspective, like this. Of course, it opens with this sick Blizzard, like animated, like just the best. Like it's so good. It is very Hellraiser. It is upsetting and gross and awesome. And when it was over after 5 minutes, I was upset because I would have watched like a full 90 minutes of something that was that caliber and detail. But the game does actually, it has sort of like in-engine cutscenes. Essentially, like, a lot of the dynamic of previous games was, here's the pretty, CG, like computer animated thing that we've built that plays for a couple minutes. And then it's a lot of, isometric camera.
Yeah.
Talking to, dialogue boxes. And what happens here is you still have the dialogue boxes, but then you have moments where it kind of splits the difference. Like the camera will like swoop down from the isometric and like get really close, and there'll be like new custom animations for like the characters that are on screen to have something play out. Like there was a moment where something happens to your character early on, they get knocked out, and it would be the sort of thing where normally like, all right, we're going to cut away to a quote unquote proper cutscene, but instead it's like the game, like the UI like just disappears. The camera zooms in, your character gets like put onto this cart that's being taken off to a different part of this village, and it's all seamless. And then like when you control the character again, they pop up and, you know, the interface is there and you can go back to casting your spells. And then there's like other moments where they're clearly taking advantage of like the level of detail that's in like the worlds now. And like they actually are like moving the camera into, you know, what we could call traditional cutscenes, but is not necessarily something we associate with the Diablo franchise and its isometric camera. So it just seems like they've got access to a lot of different tools to make the experience of playing Diablo a little more dynamic and interesting. And so you know, I haven't done much except make it past the tutorial and get to the first big city where the game presumably opens up a little bit. But I clicked on things and there were numbers and then they died. And like, that's, you know, what else do I come for Diablo for than to, well, I guess also to hear the little gold.
Yeah, whenever you click the gold, can you hold shift to see all the items on the ground?
Oh, I don't know. It's funny because I don't remember if this is in Diablo 3, but there's a dodge button. Like you can roll. It's on a cooldown.
Anyone?
Well, I don't know if it's anyone, but definitely the sorcerer can do it. I assume if the sorcerer can do it, everyone probably can.
Yeah, this is what I was like it's a universe, like possibly a universal dodge button.
Yeah,
that definitely. I don't think that was in 3. Although I played the barbarian the most in that game, and I don't remember even that having some sort of dodge.
Well, a lot of Diablo is like stand in a space, like click on the thing and like, you know, wait for the enemies to be swept away. And what happens here is like, I think it's on a 5-second cooldown. But you know, like I have this one attack that's essentially like a flamethrower. And so I can kind of like sweep that across a bunch of enemies. And as they approach me, then I can like dodge out of the way. And like I just upgraded that one where rather than always have to hit them from a distance, like as enemies get close to me, I actually have like a little flame wall that like appears around me while I use that spell. So it's like I'll use that to like get a burning effect on the enemies, then like, you know, a dodge roll out of the way. And like the first boss that I played, like that was where they introduce, you can do the dodge mechanic, but they like tutorialize it in this section because it's an enemy that is like bringing down a big axe on you. And like that does a lot of damage, or if you roll out of the way. And it's like, rather than always just like taking hits, there is like real advantage to like dodging in a certain section. There's actually an instance in where, so when I played it on console, because just like I think Blizzard had sent me a PS4 copy or PS5 copy of the game, and Diablo like plays really well on a controller now, like like not just like good for Diablo, but like feels really good on a controller. And the addition of an actual movement ability, like, would I enjoy this? Like, I associate my hundreds of hours with Diablo are with a keyboard and mouse, but I wonder if the movement stuff would feel better, you know, attached to it.
It's not Diablo if you're not getting an RSI from clicking around too much.
Right. And so maybe I could avoid that a little bit with a controller.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, you'll have to check out the beta when it goes. Live for everybody, or after you eat your double down, and then
let's see if I can find a double down with the code on it.
Yeah,
is it in between the chicken?
Is your apartment any closer to a KFC? Is that part of?
No,
you know?
No. Oh, I didn't mention. I only moved 2 blocks south, which didn't make the move any easier. You think it might?
No,
but it doesn't.
When my mom downsized after my dad passed, then I was out of the house, my brother was out of the house. She was, you know, looked around for a lot of places to live in. And then what happened to walking our dog, and neighbors 2 houses to the left, they were just starting to have a family and needed to get to a bigger place. And they weren't sticking around that neighborhood, but they like whispered to her, they're like, we hear, and they had like a ranch that was just like, you know, 1 level and then a big basement downstairs for a lot of storage. I'm like, do you just want to buy our house? And so my mom had like gotten movers all set up, and they show up with this big ass truck. And they're like, oh, right, it's only 2 houses over. So we just were loading things on pallets and then just pushing them down the street. So this big truck is there, not being used for anything except, you know, putting stuff on pallets because it didn't make any sense. So, well, let's take a break. We'll come back, chat a couple more games, take some questions. We'll be right back. And we're back. One thing I wanted to note, I meant to do this before the end of the bit on Diablo, but definitely point people towards the Shannon Lau feature over at the RIP Waypoint or Waypoint.
Oh my God,
we're fine. Washington Post is launch. Sorry,
Launch.
Wow. Well, you know, brain. Sorry about that. No, but Launcher, the gaming division over at the Washington Post is sadly no longer around, but did a lot of great work over the couple of years that it was. And back in December, Shannon wrote a fantastic piece called Diablo IV Developers Work Long Hours Bracing for Impending Release. Management and disturbing script changes contributed to delays, workers say. All about sort of the march towards this game hitting its June release date that is coming up in a couple of months. So, a lot of good people still working on games like this in unenviable positions. And so just make sure you read up on how the conditions of games like this are made, even as you may be clicking and going, well, that felt good, like I did this weekend. So elsewhere, out of the extremely slick polish zone into a world of epilepsy warnings, Post Void, Ren, is a game that you have been playing recently. Tell me about it.
So Post Void was a 2020 first-person shooter that was just re-released on consoles, and that's what I was taking a look at it for, was for the Switch release. It is a, if there's one thing that people say about old Renata Price, it's that she just loves a first-person shooter that makes your head hurt. Kind of just on first contact, if a first person shooter doesn't make your eyes kind of like go fuzzy for a second, then like she doesn't want any part of it.
Have you played the one with the rear view mirror that just came out?
I have not, because it just came out in early access and I wanted to wait a little bit.
Yes, the first chapter of that game. Cado and I played that during one of our demo streams, and we did not allow it the full 10 minutes because our brains got upset.
I could not.
Well, and because, the chat was also getting sick.
Yeah.
And it's like one thing if we had announced, hey, we're playing a game that is visually disorienting, don't watch if that's going to upset you. It's like, so we're just like, we did this for about 60 seconds, but this is a neat idea. Alt F4. Anyway, but I'm not surprised that you would be keeping tabs on that game, Ren, because it feels like it fell out of the same bucket of game that you are reliably covering for us.
I love a Post Void. I love a Hyper Demon. I love a Devil Daggers. Mm-hmm. I love a Cruelty Squad. I just like a little video game that when I look at it, my bones feel bad. And then it's even better when you couple that bone grinding visuals, those bone grinding visuals, with a gameplay style that is like truly, fit to match it. And that is very much what Post Void does in the company of games like Hyper Demon. It is a really simple game. It costs like $3 on Steam for a reason. It's because it's a pretty basic. The basic pitch is simple. You are a individual who is experiencing some kind of biochemical or psychological event, and you are trying to get beyond the void. You are trying to get to the post void.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And so you are just going through this like psychedelic, surrealist, extremely visually overstimulating maps that like the level geometry is designed to fuck with you as you try and run through it as fast as possible. And you're like, surely that's the hallway I'm supposed to be running down. You turn to your right and you're like, oh fuck, no, that's just a bookshelf. And then you like turn around. All the while your health is constantly decreasing and only increases upon killing an enemy. Mm-hmm. And so you lose health over time and also from taking hits. And the game has this like slide mechanic. And so you were trying to get through these like extremely visually overstimulating hallways as fast as possible while killing as many enemies as possible to try and stop your health bar from running out. Interchanging between like just like standard running, sliding, and jumping. It is one of the most overstimulating games I've ever played. And that's saying something as someone who has kind of, made a major part of her career being playing wildly overstimulating video games.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's a calling card, right? Like, I mean, this game starts in like the same conversation of a lot of these, a lot of shooters. I mean, you see more of these in the, like, what they call the boomer shooter category, which is specifically targeting folks who played first-person shooters in, like, the Doom Quake era. But this game is definitely adjacent from that in the sense that, like, speed used to be a much bigger, like, it is hard to convey to people now how slow first-person shooters are relative to where we started.
Yeah.
Like, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, like, those games feel like you are attached to rocket boots. Compared to even some of the fastest games you would play today. And what's interesting about Post Void is that it's taking that notion of like, oh man, when we used to play shooters, like you could just move. And then says, well, what if that movement was tied to a explicit mechanic as opposed to just being the movement speed? And that the consequence of that is then, how you navigate around enemies. I think it's really smart to identify that as one of these things that's been lost to a lot of like modern big budget shooters, but is now being kind of maximally filled by a lot of independent developers. And then this one finds it's like, well, how can another one of these games find a unique like pivot point off of this foundation? And it like, here is another one that found another one that makes me go, haha, that's pretty clever.
Yeah, the speed is the pressure point, right? That is the point of tension, is how fast can you move through the space and can you juggle that fast movement with actually keeping your health high enough to make it to the end goal. And like when you get into like the trance state that this style of game can get you into, it is just incredible. Like hitting headshots in this game instantly kills an enemy, and to hit a headshot while moving this fast makes you feel just like it's wholly built different. And all of this is built into like your standard when I say light here, I mean rogue light. Like rogue light, where basically the only thing that's happening is there's no unlocks. You just get more perks between each round, right? You just get more perks between each level. And so those perks can be something like, oh, you reload your gun faster, or your gun becomes an Uzi, or your gun becomes a shotgun, or you use a knife now instead. Good luck, dork. At which point, like, the knife is really cool because it's just like, cool, you're just gonna have to get up in these enemies' faces as quickly as possible to try and juggle this. You should never stop running forward. The knife is I'm gonna stab a guy as I'm running past him, not I'm going to clear every enemy in the level weapon, which is like really neat. And it's just like, it does bad things to my brain in the best way possible. You're
just trying to like get through as many stages as you can, then you die and start over. Is there like an end state? Like what is okay.
There are 11 levels. You're trying to get through 11 total levels, and then you get a score. So it is a score chasey game for the most part, but it does have like an end goal. Once you get a level 11, the game's like, cool, you did it. Hooray, congratulations. Again. And like, you know what? That's all it needs to be. Mm-hmm. That is all this needs to be. This video game costs $3. That's all they got to do.
The Steam reviews for this are
incredible.
I didn't even have to search very far.
Are you talking about Steam review from Mao is God? I swallowed a battery one time when I was a kid. Is that the one that stood out to you?
Or Pixel Chungus with 4 hours on record with Post Void, and their review is sex. This other one from I Am Foxeneer, pros, fun as fuck. Fast-paced, cool visual style, epic soundtrack, cons. My eyes hurt after a 20-minute play session. Recommended.
Soviet Shoelaces says, this is what 90s politicians thought weed did to you.
Yeah, well, Battle Medic. Heart. If ADHD and cocaine had a baby, this would be the result. That's all just...
Don't ever buy gas from a weed station, bro.
Like, I mean, there is this, shitposty element to a lot of games that exist in this space, Cruelty Squad, Post Void, but I think shitposting, and I wrote this in the feature that I wrote about Cruelty Squad, like, is both descriptive of what's happening here, but also can betray the genuine ingenuity that's occurring. Like, it's an aesthetic, it's a vibe, but shitpost does not necessarily imply lack of effort or that interesting things are happening.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Ren's posting more of these reviews. Just go read them. They're really good.
Yeah.
Like,
Really
you
good.
can get a whole over your lunch break. Just read the reviews for Post Void, and you will. This is a really good one. 1.6 hours on record from Poo Poo. It's just 2 question marks.
Yeah.
It's just like a shrug. Like, yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible. I think my favorite has to be, oh hell nah, SpongeBob took 40 Benadryls.
Yeah. Yeah.
SpongeBob.
So, yeah, that's Post Void.
Sponge.
You said it was relaunched on consoles. Like, you played on
Yes.
Switch. Is that where you?
I played a bit of it on Switch, and then was like, let me try this on PC. And I will say, it works much better on PC.
Is that just like a keyboard mouse thing where like the precision feels? Yeah, that's like what was it, the Boomerang X was a game that I played on Switch, and like 2 minutes into it was like, no, and then went to PC and like had a much better time.
I will say, the thing about this game is that it's not terrible on consoles because all enemies' head heights are at basically the same level. And so if you can use your movement to aim as opposed to using your mouse to aim, or like using where you're looking to aim, right? If you treat your body like the barrel of the gun, then like you can, and like just move your body to the orientation where you want to shoot someone, it actually works like pretty effectively.
I mean, that is not dissimilar to, like when you wanted to shoot an enemy on another level of elevation in Doom. I mean, you weren't aiming. You just lined up your shot and then just fired, and like the game would just correct for that. Or that is not an accurate description of Brad Shoemaker is going to track me down and beat me with a hammer for describing it that way. But people know what I'm saying. You can basically shoot up without, having to actually mouse look up. So there's definitely a long tradition in games like this where the definition of height is
misremembering, or
fuzzy.
could you literally not mouse look up? And
You can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
mods hacked it in. Like,
Sure.
people put that into the game, but no, that was just a keyboard,
left, right. Yeah.
left, right. Yeah. Yeah. And height existed, but it was, you didn't have to
couldn't-
account for it.
I could never play that game very long because something about the moving and head bobble without there being a reticle on the screen just absolutely destroyed. I would I would pay 30 minutes and be like, I don't feel too good.
Yeah. Those games are fast. Like, I mean, it is just really remarkable. I remember the last time we revisited Doom was like probably when the early Xbox 360, and it was just like novel to have anything to download, and they released a version of Doom for that. And even back then, it was just like, shit, these games were fast.
Yeah. You're zooming.
Anyway, one last game. I've put a couple hours into Bayonetta. What is the full name here? Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. I did not play Bayonetta 3. I am holding out hope that there will be a updated version for whatever the Switch like update is at whatever point. Like,
Whenever
I just looked
that
at the frame rate for
happens.
that, and when I don't think I can do it. I want to play that game.
Not great.
Yeah, I want to play it so bad. Like, Bayonetta 2 is one of my all-time favorite games, and my thought was, I'm just gonna wait and just hope that this game is coming out to the tail end of whatever ends up being the Switch's lifespan. And there's not gonna be a PC version of this game, but I was like, maybe this will be the kind of game that gets like a 60 FPS update, patch, re-release,
Right.
whatever. I'll pay whatever money I need to.
We got that for 1 and 2, right? 1 and 2 were re-released on Switch.
Correct.
And if Nintendo loves to do one thing, it's re-release games for full price.
They do with it. But my worry is that it's so close, right? Like, it's not like a 5-year anniversary. Like, am I waiting 5 years for us to get to that point? Anyway, it's all just to say, I know that you didn't think Bayonetta 3 was a perfect game, but it seemed like if you liked these games, you're probably gonna like a lot of what's going on here. And I'm just trying to forget that I didn't play that game because I enjoyed Bayonetta 2 so much. But I'm trying to like scratch that itch just a tiny bit by like playing a game that is absolutely not like Bayonetta at all, but just happens to share the namesake, which is Bayonetta Origins. It's a game that just came out, and it's a overhead, more Zelda style-ish kind of action game. It has a control scheme reminiscent of Brothers. What are other games that use like you're independently controlling two actors with separate analog sticks? at the same time. But like games of that ilk, Brothers obviously being one of the most famous and popular examples of that. But in this, you're playing as Bayonetta, and then she's trying to rescue her mother. I don't remember much about the lore and the world of these games, but she wants to go to this forest, and she's in training with this like witch that is helping her, but basically this training's going so slow, and she wants to go into this forest and try and get this power to save her mother, and dreams. Anyway, you go out there and like, part of what's happening in the Bayonetta series is that you are summoning demons to like fight alongside you. And this is situated at a point in the timeline where she is like, the game opens with her having the first lesson of summoning a demon and having a fight for her. And she summons the demon and gets scared by it. And then the demon basically is embarrassed to be around her and goes away. Like she can summon the demon, but is then scared by the very thing that she has summoned. And what ends up happening is she's still kind of a young kid, maybe like an early teenager is like maybe kind of I don't know the exact age, but definitely around that age, like 12, 13, it kind of seems like. And she decides, screw it, I'm going to go into this forest, and it kind of gets cornered by a couple of fairies, kind of like, other like kind of mystical creatures out there that want to do her harm. And she's like, screw it, I'm gonna summon a demon, and it's gonna go great this time. Well, she summons this demon, and then it like looks for a host, and the host happens to be this stuffed animal, like bear creature that she carries along with her. And that becomes the host for this demon. The demon wants to be released from this place and be sent back to Inferno, like the hell equivalent. And the Bayonetta doesn't know how to do it. She's like, I don't know the spell. You're stuck here with me, buddy. And so they end up partnering up, and you can, with a click of a button, you can bring the demon out in a kind of like, it's this big kind of bear cat, like really lumbering creature. You're controlling that with the right analog stick, and you're controlling Bayonetta with the left analog stick. And so both of them can kind of do different actions when you're like in the it doesn't look as sick as that in the game itself, but it is that style of character, and it is a very cool design. And this art style in Bayonetta Origins is more
storybook-esque.
It's more painterly, cell shaded. Like take your pick on how you want to describe that type of look. It's definitely not as exaggerated realism that you would sort of like describe Bayonetta the series.
So one thing I'll note here is that you didn't play Bayonetta 3, Patrick.
It's a not.
Cheshire is the demon who is bound to would be the wrong word. That game's second playable character.
Oh, so that sticks around. Okay, all right, that makes sense. So this is like kind of an origin story for Bayonetta and also for Cheshire as a character.
Who, the interesting thing is that like Cheshire chooses to stay with Viola, who is the character that he's bound to in the main game in Bayonetta 3.
Interesting.
Because it is explicitly, he is not bound to her. He just likes her a lot and chooses to hang out with her instead of going back to Inferno. And so it's really, I think, cute that his origin story is working with Bayonetta and being like, I have to get back to Inferno. Oh my fucking God, this stupid goddamn kid.
It's a really good bit. It was like, it was cracking me up. It was like a really great way to start. Like, okay, how are we going to explain why this character, we want them to have a side character they can control. And like, that's the explanation they come up with. And it works really, really well.
Do you care about Bayonetta spoilers?
Like for 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, hold off.
Okay. All right.
I will play that game at some point.
I've never spoken.
So on the left analog stick, you got Bayonetta, and like during the kind of, exploring phase where you're like finding collectibles and like seeing your path forward, Bayonetta can cast spells, like it's Umbra magic, right? Is what it's called in Bayonetta. And like, it's that like red circle. And the way it works here is like there will be objects that you can increase the size of, for example, like, hey, these mushrooms could become platforms. And so you can interact with that. And it's kind of got a neat system where you'll target it, and then there are like different spokes on the circle, and you have to follow that pattern as it like goes around the spoke, and that is you casting like the spell, so to speak. And it just adds like a really kind of fun not quite rhythm game, but like a layer of interactivity what it would otherwise be like press the A button and like the mushroom gets bigger. It just makes it a little more of a joy to kind of interact and have that that exchange happen between Bayonetta and the environment. And then Cheshire, it is just lumbering around. He can like knock things over and like break open new locations. And it becomes really interesting in combat. I haven't gotten the save point says I'm like 15% through the game, but like I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of like how the two are going to interact on a combat layer. I just haven't had a ton of combat yet so far in the game. It starts really slow. It's got like a long 30 minutes before you're really doing much of anything in the game. But you know, I like the brain tension of like, okay, I'm trying to set up like a lot of what Bayonetta does in the combat scenarios is the spell I have access to now is like, you know, she's got these vines that kind of come up and hold someone in place. And so you've got your big creature lumbering around, you know, Cheshire's lumbering around. And like, so you're moving the analog stick to cast a spell on this character that locks them in place. So Cheshire can come over with the right analog stick and they can do an attack. And so you're constantly kind of mixing that stuff up because the game is built to confuse you. Like you were meant to like feel strained if you're playing the game. If it was a co-op game, there would not be enough for the player to do. Like the whole point is that you are kind of doing this by yourself. You could actually absolutely make it a co-op game. There's nothing that like stops you from just handing off a Joy-Con to somebody else and experiencing it that way. But personally, I really enjoy the like brain breaking of having both at the same time.
This is also how Viola works mechanically in Bayonetta 3, where her whole thing is that she has a sword that she fights with, and when she throws her sword, it summons Cheshire, at which point you control both characters simultaneously while fighting. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really neat, and you know, it's obviously sort of different setup here because it's more of a you know, kind of isometric overhead view. Right. It's obviously a simpler game, but it's very charming. It's like just really chill, and it's like I'm playing Resident Evil 4, which is like the exact opposite like tonal end of that, and like that game is meant to have my heart like beating like extremely fast and like extracting everything I have out of me in all of its combat scenarios. And when I want something that's more than just like a visual novel or something, like Bayonetta Origins like is a nice like a nice palate cleanser. Like it's keeping me engaged, it's keeping me paying attention, but it doesn't necessarily demand everything from me. And so it's kind of my palate cleanser video game in between me writing down series of questions that I need to ask Cado about how to play Destiny, because I don't know what I'm doing. We will get into that in a stream that we'll talk about in a little bit later this week. I won't ask all those questions here, but I mean, the short version of it is like, I've done all the major things and now I'm on like the weekly treadmill and I just don't know, what should I be prioritizing this week? Like, what is the stuff I should be doing? And I don't know. So I have a lot of questions for Cado, and we're going to explore that in a stream. That'll actually that stream will probably be going on.
If you go right now, we'll probably be streaming.
You'll probably still be able to catch some of it.
Tune in.
Where Cado explains what does one do during Destiny. I will say one story I will share from playing Destiny this weekend. On Saturday, my wife was having a friend's night out, and so I was putting both of the kids to sleep, and the kids decided they wanted to sleep in the same room together that night. My youngest has a trundle bed that we can pull out. And so it takes them a lot longer to go to sleep because they kind of keep each other up when I shut the door, which is fine. I don't care. But the youngest, when it needs to actually go to sleep, like she protests it by like going up to the door and whining. And I had to take we have like a lock on the door inside, where it's one of those ones, it's like a white piece of plastic where you can, if you just put your fingers in the right place, you can open the doorknob. But it's meant to stop a small child from like being able to get out if they're constantly trying to escape. And I had to take that off because my oldest might have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and may not be able to figure out the doorknob when they're like trying to skip to the bathroom to take a piss. Anyway, Cado had made the mistake of like, I'm gonna try some of these more difficult challenges. Like, you know, just like I put myself out there. I'm gonna do a Nightfall. I don't have enough power for it, but like hopefully I'll get in a group that can like help me get through it. And got connected with a group that like I did not connect with the group that was going to carry me, Cado.
Oh,
I got connected with
no.
the group that required my participation,
Yeah.
and we were kind of just barely, getting by. But we were doing it. It was just taking us a little longer.
Yeah.
Did not have like the one player mash with us that was like, man, you got the DPS, bro. Like, just like sail us through. Instead, it was like, no, like we all need to concentrate our fire to like make headway on these health counts. And I could hear. I had the iPad set up with the camera in my youngest room.
Yeah.
And I saw her doing her, I'm going to get up and I'm going to try and escape. And the key to shutting that down is going over, holding the door shut for about 30 seconds. She'll sit on the floor and she'll be like, Dad, where are you? Where are you? And she tries to make you feel bad.
Oh,
and
no.
then like 30 seconds later, she gets back up into her bed and she actually closes her eyes and goes to sleep. But, you can't pause in Destiny. And I'm in the middle of this like really like intense night strike or nightfall. And I see that happening on the camera.
God.
And I have to run down the hallway and I can just hear everything going poorly. And like I'm holding the control in my hand. I can feel the vibrations of death and destruction all around me. And I also know that like my friends can see, my rando friends can just see someone idling in the game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this fucker has just disappeared on us halfway through this strike.
This makes me wish that there was a Bayonetta version of this, where you have to control both real-world Patrick and in-game Patrick simultaneously. Good luck, motherfucker.
And I was trying to like peek around I couldn't quite peek around the corner to see the TV, but I was like, can I revive myself? And I was like holding X and then just hitting the fire button so it could like make it seem like I was trying to do something, like communicating with Morse code, but with laser bullets to be like, I'm here, guys. Just give me 2 minutes to let this. I was like, I don't know if you can boot someone from a fire team, but I feel like I'm gonna get booted from this game. But I managed to. I saw her in the camera go back up. I rushed back down and
Nice.
we managed to finish the.
Hell yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's just really
Amazing.
Goofy stuff.
You just need to set up TVs at every possible vantage point around your house.
I know. Well, now the
broadcasting
PS5
the same
exists up.
System of mirrors.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I should just the reason I haven't done remote, I can't really do remote play when it doesn't really work in my office. Like whatever materials in my walls, just like make remote play not work.
Yeah.
It works okay for slower games. It would not be fun with Destiny probably, but that PS5 is now usually sitting upstairs now that I just drag it up and down the stairs, depending on the week and what I'm playing. I could have solved that, Cado, by just like sitting against the door and then having it on my phone and doing it that way.
That'd have been great.
All right, well, let's get into the mailbag. You can send in questions to the question bucket over at gamingadvice.com with the subject line questions. Just want to quickly read this one. It comes in from Carlos in Monterey Bay. We're getting lots more people with their stories of PC mishaps, computer lab mishaps, and they bring me great joy. So we're not reading all of them, but occasionally one will strike at my heart and feel the need to share it. Hey, crew. I have a story along the lines of the computer lab pranks. In college, my friends and I spent most of our free time hanging out in our friend Chris's room. Chris had a PC that would occasionally crash and reset for no reason. He also had a thunderstorm sound effect when his PC turned on. We would often be watching anime on the TV and hear the sound of thunder, followed by Chris sighing as he got up to deal with his PC. Our friend John used this PC one day, hopped onto AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, and made it so that every time John logged onto AIM, it would play the same thunder sound effect. For months, we would randomly hear the sound without the PC resetting itself. It not only confused Chris, but all of us who hung out in the room. Then one day when John logged into AIM, someone noticed and called him out. John began laughing and giggling as we all sat there shocked. No one was mad for as long as we all laughed. We all laughed at how long he was able to pull it off. Carlos from Monterey Bay, California. That's fantastic.
That's really good.
Forgot that in AIM you could customize like every layer of the sound effects.
Yeah.
And that like sign in, sign off, friend sign on, friend sign off, and you would just assign the most. Yeah, yes. And just assign like just the worst shit to play. It's like you could just play any WAV file. We just let you do that.
And with the internet, you could find any WAV file.
You could. So extremely good. This one comes in from Josh. Hello again, Point Crew. I've been hearing a lot of praise about enemy drops adapting to current health and ammo, Dead Space, Resident Evil 4. But why does no one mention Super Metroid, the earliest game I can think of having a similar feature? EGM even mentions it, highlighted in an attachment. And they have a scan of this little blurb from EGM. In their seminal 150th issue, January 2002, when they correctly named it the greatest game of all time. Maybe these newer games are more tightly managed and complicated with many different pickups, but seeing the purple glow of a large health pickup while on your last energy tank and lost in, I always forget how to say this, Zebes? Is that how you say it in Metroid?
Zebes?
I believe it's Zebes.
Zebes? Gives the same level of relief. Another hot Super Metroid take. Getting utterly lost and yet somehow progressing in exploration is one of the best features of a good Metroidvania. Mandatory Hollow Knight mention, but I'd also count Blasphemous. Hell yeah. But the only 3D series I can think of pulling off the trick and making it getting lost feel, quote, tense dread, rather than frustrating is the From games. Am I missing out on other games that give similar vibes? Fuck capitalism and the Packers. Hell yeah. Go home. Wait. Josh from New Orleans.
Sorry, I was wrong. It is Zebes.
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 Interesting. I mostly brought this up less for the substance of the question. No offense to Josh from New Orleans, but I wanted to give Ren an opportunity to... You filed a story based on like a conversation we had last week, or like building off some of that about the notion of games with like highlight markers for like, you know, loot drops, inventory drops, like just things that are not necessarily part of the set decoration for aesthetic reasons, but are like have gameplay hooks. So I'm curious. Like, I think like this you know question is in concert with that. Like, where did you end up landing with the piece that ended up publishing?
So I wrote that about Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 4's like choice to use bright ass yellow to demarcate where resources were stored. And I mean, I think that like it's really interesting because it is in some ways a curse of visual fidelity that is being furthered by an industry that prioritizes like visual density over all else, and like density of visual like stimuli, right? Like we were aiming for maximal fidelity, which gives us the maximal level of detail on literally every object. And once you get to that point, it kind of starts becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between what players are and are not supposed to interact with. And you know, I ended up watching a couple of GDC talks about interior design and like the intersection of interior design and level design. And like the place I ended up coming down on that was that like, as it stands right now, games as a medium are using like 20% of the toolkit. And I would be so fascinated to see what it looks like when they're using 100% of like, how do people actually construct real world spaces, right? Because by default right now, people are using lighting and coloration. And those are just two tools. There's a bunch more, including like leading lines and all this shit that like is really useful. And the other thing that I ended up thinking about in the piece was the ways in which, if you think about how film cuts work, even if you imagine, Patrick, for a moment, the year is 1912. You're sitting in a theater. A train is coming towards you. Oh God, oh no.
That's real.
No,
Mom.
That's terrible. That's real. You're frightened, and then the film cuts to a different thing, and you go, "What the fuck?" And then a couple minutes later, it cuts again. The first time you go, I don't understand how cuts work in film. That's fine because it keeps going. You're going to continue being exposed to what a cut is in a piece of media or like in a film or TV show until eventually your brain is like, oh, I see. The two images go together. Pattern recognition. I
have the big brain now.
I can see how by connecting these different clips and images of visual storytelling happens, and I understand how to move through this piece of fiction as a narrative. That's crazy. The problem with games is that if you come up against these positions of like friction, these points of friction where you're like, I don't know how this works, you either learn how to recognize the pattern or the game stops happening to you and will not give you new chances to learn the pattern through osmosis until you like do the thing to get out of the situation. This is why game logic can be so difficult to learn, especially if you have not been part of the decades of design that have gotten us to this point, right? I mean, talking about Super Metroid here is a great example in the ways in which, like, you know, Super Metroid responds to the player by giving them the resources they need at that time. That then becomes a foundational aspect of how we approach game design going forward that is not spoken of or like explicitly made explicit to players in the same way. And so you have these like invisible lineages of design that eventually like make the medium kind of hard to get into for third parties. And I think the Metroid example is a good example of that iterative design process.
This comes in from Evan in Los Angeles. Pointed ways. Ooh, that's a good one. Imagine a world where IP laws are different and the logistics of what I described below are all figured out. Is there an open world you'd like to return to, but with a different kind of game mapped within it? For me, it'd be Red Dead 2's open world with Lonely Mountain Downhill's game. Not knocking Lonely Mountain's world, which I adore, but the thought of moving through Red Dead 2's renderings with arcadey precision and speed leaves me salivating. Thank you, Evan in Los Angeles. The one that came to mind for me here is, I think I frequently find when I play open world games, like especially third person ones, the combat often leaves something to be desired because they are emphasizing the exploration elements. And then it's less true with a game like Zelda. I think that's a rarity in which like the combat's like really great, but I think of like Assassin's Creed, right? Like I'm not here for the combat. Like I'm here to like explore. And I have always wished, and I understand why a game like, I don't know, like Devil May Cry, like exists in a tightly like linear, like arena functionality, because that's the kind of game they've built. But man, I always thought like, man, like what if I could have the combat of a Devil May Cry, but like out in this big old world exploring, like, because it's like so frequently I feel like I get these big spaces and then the actual like mechanical engagement that I get, like the combat part, is just sort of like, okay, like we're doing this again. And so Devil May Cry is kind of the one I always go to because so often you're exploring as a character for the third person stuff. Like obviously first person is a bit of a different beast, but so yeah, my answer there is like a Devil May Cry gets dropped into, you know, like an Assassin's Creed type world. Like if I have that combat in that kind of world, that would be the good stuff. Does anything come to mind for all y'all?
I just thought of pistol juggling a group of people that you were hiding in for some
Hell
reason.
yeah.
You knock them all up into the sky at the
Give
same
me that
time.
S rank.
Yeah.
S rank assassination.
God. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, Breath of the Wild is definitely one of my favorite open worlds that I've enjoyed in recent memory. But
drop the character from Season into Breath of the Wild. There's like,
I mean,
like,
that
just do
makes
collabs
sense,
where
yeah.
she takes her phone or her camera and her notebook and is just going to different places,
That would
different
be fucking
apocalypses.
sick. That would definitely specifically work on that map for sure.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you could use the bike to get around just fine.
I was already doing half of that just like taking photos in that game, right? With the little tablet camera that they give you.
I obviously finished that game and don't feel a strong desire to like go back to it because it's kind of a linear. I saw everything I need to affair. But
did you do the DLC?
Is there DLC? What was the DLC?
Yeah, there was like a whole little Ballad of the Champions.
I meant Season.
Oh, for Season. I thought you meant Breath of the Wild.
No. Although I do need to do that. I should do that for Breath of the Wild before.
I got to do that
the
too.
Kingdom come out. But
I'm so excited.
In Season they put out a patch recently, and like one of the big like bullet points was like, so we've taken some of the feedback about the bike into account, and we have changed how the bike feels. I was like, I kind of want to download it just to see how the bike feels now.
Changed bike feel.
Ren, are there any like worlds that you are fond of that if you could wave a wand, you would like kind of interact with differently? Which I think is at the heart of this is like, I really like this space, and then here's a different way of interacting it than the game, that it was built around exists.
I don't really think so. Like the problem for me is like, I think a lot of open worlds are kind of just boring. Like for me, the problem is not the gameplay. That's not the issue. It's that like, I think the spaces end up not coming together in the most like engaging ways. I even like you know, you could, if you put a gun in my head, I was like, pick one. I might be like, I don't know. I'd probably go with Cado and be like, make it a photography game. However, the problem is, I think that a lot of games are not well suited to being photographed, or are oddly suited to being photographed without their gameplay systems interacting, right? I think a lot of game worlds are like, game worlds are designed to be moved through in a particular way, right? Like that is why they are designed the way that they are designed. The setting is a product of everything else, not the other way around. And so I can't really imagine many games that would seriously benefit from taking a world and stripping it of its like connective tissue. At least for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from there. Well, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode. Thanks everyone for writing in. Again, you can send in more questions to gamingadvice.com with the subject questions if you would like to be dumped into the mailbag for future consideration. That is going to be a wrap on today's episode of Waypoint Radio. If you want more Waypoint, you can follow us on Twitter at Waypoint, Facebook and YouTube at Waypoint Vice. Had a couple pieces that went up on the site recently, both Ren and I talking about Resident Evil 4, Ren's piece. Resident Evil 4's yellow boxes are not a betrayal, they're a symptom, kind of riffing on exactly what we were talking about before in terms of kind of like the iconography and geography of these games and how they communicate to players. And then my review of Resident Evil 4 didn't need a remake, but this one's brilliant anyway. You can check out both of those on the site right now. This podcast is brought to you ad-free if you're a subscriber at waypointplus.com. The sports pod is now on the main feed. Apologies. Look, Cado is out and we do our best to plug the holes where we can. But when I don't have a Cado to DM, sometimes things slip through the cracks. And so the sports pod went live for Plus folks last week, is now available in the main feed for everybody else, where Rob and I talk about, as he would call the scrappy Chicago Bulls, and I would call the crappy Chicago Bulls. But I guess it's all a matter of perspective. And we're joined by a guest to talk through. This is a more basketball focused episode as we head towards the playoffs of the NBA, which kick off in April. So make sure to check that out. We also have what's coming up this week. So we got this podcast. We're recording that. Cado and I are going to be doing that Destiny 2 stream. I think on Wednesday, Cado's got to do some server research. We're going to figure out how to structure this. Waypoint used to have a Minecraft server. Maybe that is still being run by the community. I don't know. It's possible, right?
Maybe. But that's kind of their. If it is, it'll have been.
It's its own thing at this point.
Yeah.
I don't.
We need to start in a fresh world for us to explore.
We're gonna start our own nightmare. But yeah, we're gonna basically. My daughter has asked me a bunch of questions about how to play Minecraft, and I'm gonna answer them by. I'm basically I'm soliciting Cado to teach me how to play Destiny 2, even though I've played Destiny 2, but I need to learn from an expert how to really maximize my weekly optimizations and become a true Destiny degenerate. And then I need to answer my daughter's questions by also asking Cado about Minecraft.
And you know what, Patrick? This is a great call because, when when Cado taught me Dota 2, it was a smooth and easy learning experience that was definitely approached in the correct order of operations for teaching me the information required to succeed. So I'm really excited to see how this goes for you.
Well, unfortunately, I think the curve of like moment-to-moment interactions on Minecraft is teeny different than Dota, a game that I wouldn't touch with.
We'll see.
I should teach you Dota. Enjoy
when
I did that once with Brad Shoemaker at Giant Bomb. None of those I will never do it again.
It's kind of just
be like, do you want to watch me eat shit
Diablo.
for an hour? Like,
it's kind of like playing Diablo, but only for an hour at a time.
Yeah. There's so many champions. How am I going to remember all that? Are they champions in that game? I don't know.
They're not.
Cado's going to start that stream by being like, so, Patrick, the way you get to the Ender to fight the Ender Dragon is...
Yeah, so you work backwards from the goal. The goal is find the Ender Dragon.
She plucks random verbiage from her videos, and she doesn't know how they apply. So I need to start building that foundational knowledge. And then on Friday, we're gonna riff on the double Dead Space and do a double Resident Evil. So Ren and I are gonna be playing Resident Evil 4, the new game, and the old game at the same time. Ren, have you decided which one you would? I'm putting you on the spot here. Have you decided which one you would want to play?
Give me new.
You want to go new? Okay, so Ren's gonna be playing the remake. I'm gonna be playing the original game, the Steam version, most likely. I should do the VR.
I was gonna say do
one.
the VR version. I thought the VR version was great.
I would probably hit. I'll think about it. I'll think about. Oh, I don't have mine. I don't have it.
No,
my brother borrowed my Oculus, so it's not here. I won't have it.
What a crock of shit.
I played that game on the Wii, which isn't like VR that much.
It was a good version of that game, though.
The
aiming was awesome.
Yeah, it was sick. I loved fucking clanking those fucking axes they throw at you. It was just like pew, right out of the air. It was awesome.
And that feels very good in VR as well. Yeah. So yeah, look forward to that on Friday. You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Klubik. Ren, where can people follow you?
At Ren or Raven.
Cado.
At _Cado_appears.
Our theme music is by Bowen. The track is Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Learn more at waypoint.zone/Bowen. That's us calling time on this week. There's so much more week left.
No,
we just started
God,
the
I
week.
wish.
Yeah, that'd
actually,
be
you know what?
sick.
Fuck it, guys. We're done.
We're good.
No more week.
All
No
those
more
things
week.
that we just mentioned, not happening. Sorry.
I just decided that we're not doing them anymore. But that'll do it for this episode of Waypoint Radio. We'll talk to you again on Friday. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home.